the banks have got a completely lost battle here because they are beginning to use blockchain for their day-to-day activities, while at the same time saying, "Oh, we don't know Bitcoin." No. And that's a bit naughty, really.
Hello and welcome back to the Crypto Standard podcast, where we take the cryptic out of crypto. Okay, today we're mixing it up a little and we're joined by Temple Melville, who's the CEO of ScotCoin. Yes, as in Scotland. We invited Temple on as we are curious what the project is and how it all works. Temple is a mathematician and studied economics. So this is a really interesting chat about the overall crypto industry as well. I have to emphasize here that we are in no way promoting ScotCoin nor working with them. And of course, nothing we say is financial advice.
Hi everyone and welcome to the next episode of the Crypto Standard podcast with me, Jim.
And me, Jay.
Jay, I went out last night and I went to a Freddie Mercury and Queen tribute band in the Whitehall Theatre in Dundee, and It was brilliant.
I've seen the videos on Twitter that you put up.
It was just so good. The guy, they were just great. It was just one of those hours of just, you could forget Russia, Ukraine, crypto, pilot exams, the whole lot, and I've just given it, Radio Gaga.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Anyway, that just shows you what can pop up in Scotland. And today, on that segue, one thing that has popped up in Scotland is ScotCoin. And I kind of know about it, Jordan. I know it's on the fringes, but I'm excited to find out more. And today's guest is Temple Melville. And Temple Melville is... Temple, are you the CEO of ScotCoin?
I am. ScotCoin Project CIC. Yes, that's me.
And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Where are you today?
Well, I'm actually in a place called East Anglia down south. I just travelled down here yesterday, but I'll be travelling back in the not too future. But we've got real wind down here, so I know you've had it up there, but I missed it yesterday, fortunately. But it's really, really windy here today.
It's really weird that I've just watched Sky News there, and the head of all the national rail saying, don't travel by rail, etc. And my daughter's she's a cabin crew with British Airways. She took off this morning at 6 o'clock over to Germany. And they're now stranded over there because they can't come back because they can't land at Heathrow. And I'm like, why did you take off?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really quite weird. I mean, the other thing that was really interesting yesterday as I was traveling down, there was an announcement after every stop which said, if you are, and why somebody being on the train would know this, I don't know, but saying if you're supposed to be traveling on Friday, you can travel today without any problem, or Saturday, depending on what you've got. So I'm guessing there'll be quite a lot of trains that simply don't run, today at all. So we shall have to see. But I mean, the British love this. They love, a crisis with weather and a crisis with snow and, wind. Oh, wonderful stuff. And it's if we didn't have the weather, we'd have nothing to talk about.
I know, it's all it creates so much drama, doesn't it?
Oh, unbelievable, yes. And of course, the world famous, I've forgotten his name now, but the guy who didn't predict the 1987 tornado.
That's right.
He was told that it was a tornado coming, and he said, I can promise you it isn't. He absolutely ripped through everything. Wonderful.
He never recovered from that, did
Never recovered.
Okay, so I guess, Jordan, you probably want to kick off because we've had a chat around ScotCoin and we kind of don't understand it, but...
Yeah, I think what we should do first is get to know Temple. How did you get into cryptocurrency and get involved with ScotCoin?
Well, in reality, it goes back a very long way to when I was at university. And one of the subjects I did was mathematics. And in amongst that mathematics module, although in those days, of course, it wasn't called a module, was a thing to do with cryptography. And so I got quite interested in that, and I enjoyed it, and so on and so on and so on. So I then started my business life and went along, and then we got to about 2009, 2010, and all of a sudden there was the white paper from Satoshi Nakamoto about peer-to-peer transfers, and I'm probably one of the few people who's actually read the whole thing. But anyway, the point is that it was obvious it was a cryptographic equation. It was obvious that it was very secure, and it was obvious that it was, as he said, peer-to-peer, i.e. there's nobody in the middle. And that's really the most important point about blockchains. There is nobody in the middle. I can send to you and it goes straight to you, and that sort of thing. So that's my original interest, and I everybody's got the same story. I bought Bitcoin when it was about $100, and it got up to $500, and I sold them because I knew it would never go any more than that. And I've done that about 4 or 5 times over the period, and I'm still wrong. So what the hell. But the interesting thing about it was that it was quite clear that there was an adoption path that was happening. And that continues to this day. I mean, one of the things I like particularly much is if you go back sort of 2.5 years or so, there was only something like 58 million wallets, crypto wallets in the world. Nowadays, there's just under 400 million. It may be over 400 million now. So that's a huge increase. It's not all Bitcoin, obviously, but Bitcoin is the big daddy. If you like, it's the reserve bank of crypto. It's a real thing. It's a real way that people transfer value. And that again, that's another very important point. The blockchain is how you transfer value. The internet gave us the ability to transfer knowledge, but the blockchain gives us the ability to transfer value or hold value, as the case may be. So that's how I got originally interested. And then, in fact, ScotCoin was started in 2013 with a view to perhaps helping if the referendum had been won in 2014. And before we go any further, I have to say we're an apolitical organisation. We're not in any way associated with Scottish Government or SNP or anything like that. We just want people to be better off in Scotland.
Interesting.
So there we have the referendum was then lost. The person who started the ScotCoin blockchain decided that he was only a one-man band anyway, so he just couldn't continue himself. So he actually he did what's called a migration from what we call V1, which is what he had created, to V2. And V2 was on a protocol called Counterparty Protocol. And that was very good from his point of view, because it meant he didn't have to do any of the validation or anything else ever again. And that's when we got involved, was when that change was taking place or should have taken place and so on. So that was sort of 2015, and we actually took over the IP and what I would describe as the loose coins in early 2016. So that's how the present management got involved, was at that time then.
Interesting. So taking you back to mathematics, I'm doing my private pilot's license just now, and one of the things I came up against last week was SOHCAHTOA, in terms of you're flying from A to B, and the wind creates drift, and you go 6 degrees off angle. So what heading have you got to fly back onto, work out that degree? And there's like SOHCAHTOA. It took me straight back to higher mathematics, and then I started to sweat because I hated it.
You're giving me nightmares right now. Is that like the sin cost time? I remember.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's wonderful stuff.
Wonderful stuff. But the interesting thing is, I think people forget, Tempo, is that when people just go, it's crypto, as you say, it's just this weird word that's got so many connotations that are pejorative and negative these days. but it's actually built in mathematics, isn't it?
It is. It's absolutely mathematics. Well, there's two things I want to say about that. The first point is, of course, in a sense, if you hold crypto, there is no reason for you to understand how it works. It is purely, it's like a telephone. I have no idea how a telephone works, but I can make a phone call. So in the same way, if you hold crypto, you can send it to somebody, buy it, sell it, you can do what you like with it, but you don't need to necessarily know how it works.
Yeah.
Of course, people are interested to know how it works. That's a different matter, but there's no necessity for it. It's a bit like stocks and shares. You don't need to know how the stock market works to be able to buy and sell shares.
Yeah.
So that's my first point about that. But the second point is that I think people genuinely are becoming more interested in crypto as we go through time, because they're realizing that, in fact, crypto as such is inherently extremely safe. What is not safe are the exchanges and individual places, because there is only one point of attack. And you're always hearing about a hack of this or a hack of that. But it's not the blockchain. It's nothing to do with the blockchain. The blockchain is inviolate. And I always like to, I give talks quite often about different things. And one of the things that people always come up to, how safe is it? How safe is the blockchain? And I say, well, how about 1 grain of sand in the Sahara Desert? Do you think that's safe enough? And they say, oh, no. One grain of sand in the world. Well, 1 grain of sand in the Milky Way. How about that? Oh, no, that would be fine. Okay, so we'll take 1 grain of sand in the entire universe, and it's actually more than that. So, it's pretty good, really. And I think that if anything, that's one of my main messages to people. The blockchains themselves are inherently safe.
We've stayed on cryptocurrency. Let's shift it a little bit more towards what is ScotCoin, because all our listeners know we are Scottish, so we're intrigued to hear what is ScotCoin. So can you give a quick summary of what exactly it is?
Oh, no problem at all. ScotCoin is very simply a digital currency. Its name's on the tin, Scot. We are intending, and we already do quite a lot of good works in Scotland and beyond. We're very keen on green initiatives. We've got a lot of initiatives for carbon capture and carbon sequestration and so on. And all these things are, good for us. They're good for Scotland. They're good for the world, and that has to be a good thing. One of the little stories I like to tell is relatively recently there was a manufacturer of tracksuits down south, and as with all manufacturing clothes people, they had an issue with their they'd either made too much or they'd done it wrong or something anyway, and they were literally going to burn them. And of course, that's a waste of resources, and B, it's not very good for the planet. So we approached them and we said, okay, we will buy these from you in exchange for ScotCoin. And after a bit of toing and froing, they saw the logic of that, and they saw how that was better. It was a win-win. They weren't going to pay the money to get them burned, and so on and so on and so on. And we then shipped them up to Emmaus in Glasgow, who obviously used them for people that needed them. And that's what we do. We try to make things better for people who are in need. There's a whole lot of different things involved, but that's a very good example of how things work.
Okay, so I get that kind of altruistic, philanthropic side, but in terms of the actual coin itself, so it's set it up as a kick, which is CIC, isn't it? The actual
CIC,
company.
Yeah. Right. Well, I need to just give you a little bit more background on that. There's two sides to it. One is ScotCoin, which is the coin.
Yeah.
And then we have, which is what we set up, which is the ScotCoin Project CIC, Community Interest Company. Yeah. And the whole point is that, if you like, ScotCoin is the fuel to do stuff, and ScotCoin Project CIC is the educational and philanthropic arm of ScotCoin. Yeah. And so anybody who's out there who's interested in getting some ScotCoin because they're doing good things, get in touch. We'd be delighted to talk it through with you, see what we can do to be helpful, because that's what we're in the business of.
And so going back to the coin then, I take it there'll be a circulating supply,
Yes.
Is it built on like the Ethereum blockchain, or?
It is. It's what they call an ERC20 token, which is on the Ethereum network. We have been verified by Etherscan. We have been code audited by people called Hacken. Hacken are the leading code auditing company in the world, really. We had their highest rating. And we've also had third-party audits done for everything else you can think of in terms of security. So that's all in place. And yeah, I mean, you'll know, I'm sure ERC20 tokens are by far and away the biggest number of tokens in the world. I mean, there's 20, 30,000, I think, on it, more maybe now, I don't know.
And how does ScotCoin work in terms of governance? Does it have, is there a, because we're big fans of Cardano, and we love what Charles Hoskinson, another mathematician who has built Cardano and Haskell, he's extremely precious about making sure that as Cardano starts to scale, the governance side of it is really strict. There's no rug pulls, no one's getting ripped off, there's no centralized committee making decisions on when coins will be released. And Jordan and I have had bad experiences of that with other projects. How does that work with ScotCoin?
Well, before I tell you, the short answer is it is still the Wild West, and it'll be the Wild West for some years to come. Yeah. But just in terms of ScotCoin, the first point is that all the people who are large holders have signed agreements not to sell for at least 1 year after the IEO, initial exchange offering. The same thing applies to what I call the treasury, which is the unissued stock. And we've also got a covenant in the terms and conditions of the CIC, which says no more than a certain number will be released each year, quite a small number, in fact, to do good, and maybe not at all. Moving on from that specific thing, we have an advisory board of I think very good people, and we also have the intention, as and when we once we've gone on the exchange and once we've sorted all these things out, we're going to have a new setup for ownership and so on of TSP and one thing and another. So all that takes it away from the people who've set it up. Let's put it that way. It takes it away from us and puts it in the hands of the man in the street, if you like.
And in terms of, sorry, Jordan, let me just move in here again. In terms of, so if you look at Bitcoin sits there very decentralized, and it has pretty stalwart developers. Is ScotCoin like a Dogecoin that's sitting there, or has it got active developers, and how are they recompensed?
We recompense them partly in cash and sometimes in ScotCoin. It depends. For just as an example, the PR company that is now with us, called Frame, who are a big company, they take ScotCoin for what they do for us. Similarly, the accountants who are specifically crypto orientated take crypto from us, take ScotCoin from us. The work that we are doing at the moment isn't obviously not related to the blockchain per se, for the simple reason that Ethereum does the whole thing, and you just have to pay fees. But we have a thing called ScotScan.io, and you can go to ScotScan.io and you can sign up, and you get an @Scot address, of course you do, and you can then transfer between each other for free. There's no gas fees, they're instantaneous. It makes life very simple, and that was one of the projects that we developed, and we're still developing. There's still work to be done, but that's ongoing. And we have another project which is ongoing, which is going to be like a gum tree for particularly the third sector, for charities and so on. And again, I always describe it as, somebody gets given a whole set of tables and chairs or whatever, and they only want 2 of the chairs and half the table. What do they do with the rest? A lot of the time they just throw it in the bin. But with using this app or website, whatever, it's going to be entirely possible that you as a charity will put up your whatever it is you have in excess of what you require, and somebody else will come along and say, that's great, I'll take that, thank you very much. And that's the way we see it.
Wow. Have you spoken to the Scottish? I take it at some point you guys or somebody's spoken to the Scottish government about it.
We did. We spoke to them about. I'm not just too sure now. I think it's about 3 years ago, and the big issue we had was that they, of course, it's not a devolved power, so they can't actually do anything about a currency. They could have done, as we suggested, create a sovereign wealth fund, for lack of a better expression. And that was certainly something that was discussed. The issue that seemed to arise, and it would be, I think, still possible to get around it, was that if you give something to people who are on benefits, that is going to affect their benefits. And this is quite a difficult situation to be involved with. Hence, it's better from our point of view not to actually hand out, currency or money or whatever you want to call it. It's much better to do something with the coin, like the tracksuits or whatever it might be. Then nobody's getting into any trouble with anything like that. Having said that, I mean, we have contacts with the Scottish government, and we're always open to talk. It may be that they decide that it's a good thing and they come back to us. I don't know. I would love, do you know what I would really like? I would love the Scottish government to say, we've got it's not only the Scottish government, it's the local councils as well. We've got a whole lot of allotments all over Scotland. And the rent for the allotments is pennies, literally. It's nothing, hardly. We want all the allotments to be paid for in ScotCoin. And it would cost them nothing. It would make their supervision of them much, much less. Wouldn't be any cost to them at all. And it would be great, and that would be a positive step and a proper way in to get started. So I would love that, but I think it's unlikely to happen in the short term.
So I'm trying to get my head around it still. The value. So at the moment, ScotCoin, does it have a value at the moment? I see it as you're giving it out to people for like the tracksuits and everything else, but are they seeing, from their side, are they seeing this as valuable, or are they just kind of like accumulating right now that it will have value in the future?
I think there's two answers to that. The first is that, if we just take the tracksuit people as an example, they took the view that they were getting something which was actually going to cost them money. It wasn't going to cost them money. They were getting something which they could see would be valuable. Now, the point is, once you've got the ScotCoin as those tracksuit people, you don't have to, you can keep it, you can sell it, you can exchange it, or you can use it as part of your own ecosystem as an added bonus. So just, again, making it up, we are in conjunction with Better Internet Search, which is another very fine Scottish company. They are using ScotCoin as their native coin. So you, as a user of Better Internet Search, will get given ScotCoin. Now, the people who are given the ScotCoin have a choice. They can keep it, they can sell it, they can do what they like with it, or they can give it to a charity. And actually, one of the charities, or some of the charities we're working very much with are people to do with carbon sequestration. And Better Internet Search is very keen, in the same way as we are, on green initiatives. So that's how it is. I mean, you can, if you like, you can pluck any number you like out the air at the moment, because it's not on an exchange, although it will be quite shortly. And then obviously that will be the rate of exchange. Simple as that.
Which
but we were selling ScotCoin at £50 per thousand, so in other words 5p, up until relatively recently, but we've stopped selling at the moment.
Which exchange are you going to go on?
It's going to be Probit Global, who are very nice. They actually came to see us, which I thought was pretty big of them, really. And we've also had words with LA Token, but we're not quite so keen on them. But Probit Global's people are really nice. We really like them.
I'm going to bring the conversation back. So I looked on the website for, I assume this this will get released upon the ICO, is the white paper.
Yeah.
Will ScotCoin have a white paper? I couldn't find one.
Yeah. No. I mean, the white paper is and has been in production for some months. One of the things that we think, not necessarily correctly, but we think, is that if we're doing a white paper, we should have all the information that's relevant in it. If you look at a lot of white papers, they're pretty light on information, and they're pretty light on tokenization and all the rest of it. There's an awful lot that we have to get cleared, and we have been getting cleared by lawyers and so on. I mean, our white paper is going to run to about 30 pages, and that's the cut down version. I mean, I'm perennially getting 4 and 5 page white papers, which really don't tell you anything. They just say we're wonderful and we're going to do this, and that's it, almost. And we don't think that's right. We think that people should know, everything that we know, if you like, when that point comes. And that's what we're working on as we speak. In fact, no later than this morning, I had a discussion with some people who are working on it, and we changed some of the wording, and we changed some of the stressing on it, and so on and so on and so on. So it's a much bigger undertaking than people realize. And of course, the whole point is that we may say, well, the opening price is X. We don't know what the price is going to be on day 2, but if we've done our job right, we've told people all the right things, and so on and so on and so on, they'll be much more keen to hold on and to do more with the coin and all the rest of it.
So have you been watching what's taking place in El Salvador? Yes,
absolutely. I mean, one of the things always to remember is that Bitcoin's only like 12 years old maximum. And other institutions and so on have been around for hundreds of years, and they're fighting back. The banks have got a completely lost battle here, because they are beginning to use blockchain for their day-to-day activities, while at the same time saying, "Oh, we don't know Bitcoin." No. And that's a bit naughty, really. But the other thing too about that is, if you talk about one of the reasons that Bitcoin started was because of the 2008 bank crashes. I mean, lots of people were literally wiped out completely by it. Because, I mean, for example, in Cyprus, one of the banks was completely taken over for free, and even the depositors didn't get anything. I mean, I know someone who had £1 million in a bank in Cyprus, and he got not one penny. I'd rather have a couple of Bitcoin tucked away somewhere and see what we can do. But the thing about El Salvador I find most interesting is that Salvador started out and had bank accounts set up and so on, and that's fine. And there was about 1.8 million of them over 20 years. And then along comes Bitcoin, and they've got 3.5 million people with Bitcoin wallets. Now, there is 3.5 million people who were effectively unbanked or completely unbanked, and suddenly they've got the ability to do stuff. And that's, that's a wonderful thing to do for people, to give them empower. I mean, it's the usual word, empower them to do something. And if you just think about it, that's 3.5 million people who are, I'm quite sure, feel prouder to be El Salvadorian than they did before. It's a very interesting, and of course, there's lots of people saying, "Oh, it's a disaster," and it's this and that. And of course, it's bound to be. And again, as ever, we'll look back in 10 years' time and say, "Gosh, what a good idea they had."
How does that make you feel, Tempo? So Jordan and I get frustrated sometimes in Scotland because we, as a country, we've got no money. We borrow, and we're about to, if we want to become independent, we're going to go and join the EU and borrow more money from Christine Lagarde. So President Bukele has basically said, I've been borrowing from the IMF for a long time, and all the strings that come with that through the USA and the US dollar, etc. I'm going to go and do more. And he's a young guy. Now, he's either going to jump in a plane one day and go somewhere with thousands of Bitcoin, or he's going to create prosperity for his country. So as an experiment, Does it ever frustrate you when you look at Scotland and think, actually, we could run that side experiment as well?
Yeah, no, we could, and we've got one or two projects in there. The one thing I have to say is it takes a long time to get certain things done right, and I stress done right, because you can do a lot of things if they just go off half-cocked or whatever. But I'm sure you all both know, and I guess many of your listeners will know about VIR, WIR, which is in Switzerland. Now, VIR is a cryptocurrency, which just means an alternative, really, which has been going since the 1930s. And the reason it started is because, nobody in the 1930s had any money. There was no liquidity anywhere. And the good burghers of Zurich said, well, if we're going to survive this, we have to have some means of transferring value. They couldn't go to the bank, they couldn't get Swiss francs. We need something to be able to pass between ourselves to make this work. And they set up VIR. Now, VIR actually means we in German, which I like. And it also is a big, long German 3 words, which I can't remember. But the point is that what it did was it enabled those people who joined it in the early days to trade between themselves, and they would not have been able to do so had they not created VIR. Now, time goes on. VIR is very much still with us. VIR today has, I think, 70,000 businesses in Switzerland take it. 600,000 or 700,000 Swiss people hold it. And it turns over, I don't know, 7 billion Swiss francs a year or something. I mean, it's about a 2%, 2.5%, plus to the Swiss economy. And the lovely thing about VIR is, and I always say this when I'm talking about it, you go into a shop and it's not either or. You're not either paying in VIR or the Swiss franc. You go in, you say, I want that sofa, please. And the man says, that's fine, that's 1,000 Swiss francs. And you say, I'm very sorry, I've only got 700, but I've got 300 VIR. And he says, that's fine, just transfer them over, bang, delivers the sofa, that's it. And he then goes to his suppliers and says, I owe you 500 Swiss francs, here's 300 VIR and 200 Swiss francs, or whatever it might be. And that, of course, is entirely what the economy needs. It needs money moving around. And that is something that we can do very, very easily with ScotCoin. And we very definitely want to do it. I would love to be the sort of VIR of Scotland. I think that would be wonderful.
Here's 2 reasons why I think we will struggle with something like that. Number one is the small nation mentality that Scotland has in terms of its internal politics. But number two, and here's one I think that people forget or don't know about, is the amount of multimillionaires and billionaires that have the Scottish government's ear, who live in Scotland, who live in Monaco, etc. And they have Nicola Sturgeon, John Swinney's ear. And as a result of that, when you come up with, you do your presentation and say, here's what ScotCoin be, they run it by them and they go, no, it's not, because it doesn't suit them, does it? Because it's not their baby.
That's always the case. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, there's always be someone who's a naysayer. And I take your point. I think you're possibly correct. But I think the real point is that we have found that people are, because what we're trying to do is to help people on the street, if you like. I mean, something like 200 people died on the street in Scotland in the last couple of years. I mean, that's absolutely appalling. I mean, why in our country does that happen? There's people who are short of food. There's people who have got fuel poverty. There's people who've got housing poverty. All these things should be addressed. And at the end of the day, if our said billionaires and millionaires don't want to address that, then we have to, somebody has to. And whether that's going to be the Scottish government, which, to be honest, I'm not sure about, or it has to be some kind of charitable organization. And I'm very, very sure in my own mind that when people accept that these things need to change, because a lot of them think, oh, it's nothing to do with me, but it is. It's to do with all of us. It really is. There's this wonderful thing with do a little, do a lot, or whatever it's called. Change a little, do a lot, sorry. And that's very true. I mean, I strongly believe that, people will buy into doing things better, as simple as that.
So I've got a letter to the Scottish government coming out in the Bitcoin magazine on Monday, and it's to start the debate around Scotland buying Bitcoin as part of a sovereign wealth fund, because I believe that they should be thinking about this, or at least discussing it. So for the future, how do you see it playing out? Do you see us holding Bitcoin, having a stable coin on the side, and then also having ScotCoin? Or do you see it, how do you see it playing out with all the different cryptocurrencies in Scotland?
I think there's a couple of, as you say, a couple of paths that we might go down here. The first is, certainly as things stand, I don't think the Scottish government could have anything very much to do with crypto, because it's just not, they don't have that devolved power. That said, I think that there is an argument for local authorities in particular to be involved with Bitcoin. I mean, there's things like Florida and various other places in the States that have had a wonderful resurgence by using cryptocurrency within their, if you like, within their ecosystem. And I strongly believe that we could do that without any problem here in Scotland. And if you go a bit further down the line, then I inherently, I think stable coins are a good idea, because one of the things is that it costs fortunes to send money anyway. And there's always somebody or two or three people in the middle taking a clip out of it. So if you use cryptocurrency, no, you don't. You haven't got a clip. It's me to you, full stop, end of story. And that being the case, then we should be encouraging people to look at transferring value in that way, and using and I'm going to use the word government-backed stablecoin, because it would probably have to be, would be a very good thing. But that wouldn't preclude either Bitcoin or, well, I mean, assuming everybody doesn't ban everything to do with crypto, that wouldn't preclude Bitcoin or ScotCoin being, side issues, side parts, as it were, of the whole. And one of the things about Scotland is that it needs, as does the whole of the UK, it needs a lot of investment, and it needs a lot of people who are prepared to invest their time, to invest their money, to invest all sorts of things. And ScotCoin is one of the avenues that can happen. So I'm very, what's the word? Bullish about the future of cryptocurrencies within Scotland. Because I think it could give us, in the same way that the attitude we have to fintechs in Scotland could give us a very good future. I think in the same way cryptocurrencies could give us a very good future in Scotland.
You mentioned used the word ban there, and many of us are watching what's going on in Canada right now with the truckers, and the fact that the government in Canada are coming down and literally switching off the sort codes of certain individuals and certain companies, are threatening to do so, and also with exchanges. So do you think, this is a wider question, do you think as Bitcoin grows, as specific cryptocurrencies grow, and even with the introduction of ScotCoin coming on an exchange, do you think at some point governments are going to if they don't want to learn, then they just become terrified, will try and ban or switch or over-regulate it, which will cause people like me and Jordan to pack our bags and go to places like Portugal and El Salvador?
Yeah, well, I mean, I genuinely think that's true. And let's be honest, the people who are interested in crypto are probably all much more self-reliant, independent, and in fact capable of doing stuff. And the last thing we need in Scotland is to lose more people. I mean, that's been our problem all along, that all the sort of best and brightest all disappear over the... Actually, funnily enough, I must just tell you this, it's a bit naughty, but there you go. The person who started ScotCoin back in 2013 was a chap who was very keen on Scottish independence. Where does he live? Malaga, and he's lived there for 20 odd years. And I remember saying to him, well, I said, no, the weather's nice. I much prefer it here. You're leaving all us to the rain and wind and all the rest of it, but you're going to stay in Malaga. So I'm a bit sort of dubious about those sort of things. But anyway, no, I think mind you, I think the Canadian government has messed up massively over the whole of this. I don't think it's just an issue of one thing or another. It's just a total shambles. But yeah, I mean, I think it could happen that people will. China's kind of done it. India kind of did it, and then they stepped back from it because they realized it was really important. And the other thing is, how do you stop 10 million or 20 million or 100 million people from doing something?
Yeah,
it's very difficult. And there's always, if there's money in it, there's always going to be one country or two countries that will welcome it. Like China banning all the mining people and one thing or another. Half of them have gone to America, the other half have gone somewhere else. It's not going to disappear overnight.
It's interesting listening to you talking, and I was thinking about bottom up earlier on as opposed to top down. And Jordan and I are big fans of a cryptocurrency project called Reserve Protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And Reserve has created a stable coin and a mechanism to have another coin that sits beside that creates value. It's like a checking account and a savings account. And it is huge in Venezuela and getting bigger and bigger.
Of course. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, and the same, I'm actually sure that, for example, in Turkey, there's lots and lots of people suddenly using Bitcoin to exchange and do things, and maybe other coins as well. I mean, everybody wants their own space. And if your own space gets taken away from you by your government or your whatever it is, you're going to do something to get it back, whatever it might be. And I think, you're saying about Venezuela. Well, Venezuela's had a lot of problems, and it's maybe beginning to turn the corner a little bit. It doesn't take very much to bring things to a better pass, shall we say? Yeah. I mean, I'm 100% with you. It's very necessary that we don't ban or turn off or whatever. I do believe in regulation. I think it's very important. We need to know that the money that's coming isn't from extortion, prostitution, drugs, whatever it is. That's a very important point. The thing that always amused me, of course, that everybody said, oh, Bitcoin's all to do with drug money and all this. Well, not really, because you can tell exactly where it came from and where it went to. Which is, people think it's anonymous. No, it's not in the least anonymous.
I know.
And when you explain that to people, they kind of go, "Oh, I didn't know that." I'm sorry.
That's why the Canadian government can tar dresses, because it's not anonymous, because they know who it is.
Exactly. I mean, it's
part of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's created.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just. Really fascinating. I mean, I think we could talk for hours on this, but
I'm sure we could. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Where do people find out more about ScotCoin? What is if you people to say, I want to find out more, tell me what's happening in the next 12 months to get me excited?
Well, the first thing, of course, is to go to our website, which is ScotCoinProject.com. You can sign up there and get our email that we send out to you, and sign up for Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And that's where we put everything out, so it's all totally transparent. We will be announcing the exact date for it's called an IEO, initial exchange offering. It just means going on to an exchange fairly shortly. And again, I'm always very happy. My email address is temple@scotcoinproject.com. Anyone's got a question, just send me an email. I'll very happily answer if I can. We're very keen to bring people on board. That's part of what we do. I spend a lot of time talking to groups of people and to people like yourselves and so on. And I feel every time I do it, I always feel that the people that I'm talking to are inherently interested and are inherently keen to see something like ScotCoin working well for them within their own country, and that's a fantastic feeling, to be honest. I mean, the other thing I really like is that whereas the pound is GBP and the dollar is USD and the euros EUR, well, ScotCoin is SCOT, Scot, and that you can't get better than that, really. That's it. We've done it.
That's pretty good. Jordan, is there anything you want to ask?
Oh, he disappeared.
I had it on mute still. It's because there's background noise here. I think that rounds it off really nicely, and I will be really interested to read the white paper when it comes out, because we're very fundamentals based. So I like reading white papers. I like learning about the tokenomics and where everything goes. So the fact that you're taking time to really research this and write it all down is a good thing in my book. So I'm excited for when that comes out.
Thank you. I'd just add one little thing there, which you can either use or not. In actual fact, at the point of the IEO, there'll be there'll be more than 87% of the tokens will be locked. So there's not going to be a huge volume available.
Congratulations, and we wish you every success with your initial exchange offering. It's a project that we'll now follow and see where it goes. We'll follow you on Twitter, and again, you share a lot of the same values. As Jordan, as I always say, we preface the podcast, we're not financial advisors, we don't give financial advice, and neither do any of the guests that come on. It's all about information and education, and I've been educated. I found out something different this morning. Hey, Jordan?
Yeah.
Well, I'm delighted. That's all I can hope for.
Tempo, wish you all the best with ScotCoin, and thank you so much for all your time.
And thank you both too.
Thank you.
Bye.